that time in your life?
No, I grew up with all kinds of music, and I've been in music all my life. That's all I do. I'm 67 years old. I've been a musician for 61 years. That's all I do, and that's all I've ever wanted to do. And I listened to many musics when I was a kid. And wherever I go to the music, like when I wanted to get into Jamaican music, I visited Jamaica a lot. I gave myself a trip to West Africa and Central Africa because I wanted to see Franco personally. I wanted to see the Juju musicians, Sunny Ade and Chief Ebenezer Obey. And of course, Sunny Okosuns and Fela. I wanted to see them personally. I became like a great, very close friend of Fela's, and he helped me a great deal in traversing. But I lived in Liberia, I lived in Ghana. I came with a group from Ghana to the States, and I did maybe 6 very successful albums with them. I went to live in Botswana. I lived in the Congo. In Botswana, I came out with a group, the Kalahari. Now I'm playing with guys from home. I started with people from here. So it doesn't matter to me where the person comes from. But when I'm in their territory, I try to adapt to them as much as possible. But I love all kinds of music. I love Chinese music. I love Mongolian, Pakistani, Indian. I love all African music, I went to classical music school for 4 years. I went to conservatory. And I'm a scholar of jazz. I'm a scholar of all African township and dance music, and I'm a scholar of village music. And I'm obsessed with seeing a return of the traditional culture of Africa projected to the world, especially through music and dance, because the world hasn't seen us yet. And we ourselves, we haven't seen ourselves in a long time because we were told those things that we are were heathen, they were backward, they were barbaric, they were uncivilized. And that is our treasure. That's who we really are. And unless we go back to those things, which is what we really are, I don't think we'll ever get the respect because people don't know our culture. And instead, we've been consumed by European and American culture especially. And because we've lost ourselves as a people, we are manipulable. We can be manipulated because we don't have something to hang on to. It's not mentioned that our history was glorious long before the 10th century. We don't study those things. We think they're African, they're backwards. But we've had glorious kingdoms and glorious empires. And we brought civilization to the world through who we were. And as long as we don't go back to who we were, and being who we were doesn't mean that we have to abandon the modern things we know. The Chinese have kept that, the Japanese, the Indians, the Arabs, they've kept that. But what you see in front of them always is their culture. And they have weeks, and they have months, and they have seasons where they observe ceremonies that have to do with their culture, with who they are. We don't have one as an African people internationally. You know what I mean? They've been forced into denial of their heritage. It was beaten into them. And of course, we've been manipulated by the industrial complexes of the world as cheap labor. I come from these people. I was born without any music. And the first music that I was exposed to was music of African origin at home and abroad. And when I came to the States, I was helped by Miriam Makeba, who brought me to school, and she persuaded Harry Belafonte to help send me to school, and I went to Manhattan School of Music. And the thing that they said, especially Belafonte said to me, and Miriam had already proved it, said when you get attention from the media, speak to them about the people you come from and their quality of life. You don't have to be political, but you have to talk about their quality of life. because therein you will bring awareness about the conditions of your people, you know. And I find it very strange when a person is successful in the arts, because most of us come from humble beginnings. But somehow, when we're successful, we are impressed by the attention we get, and we forget the people we come from, and we forget that they are our source. You know, that they taught us how to walk, they taught us how to talk, how to think, they gave us language, they gave us music, they gave us a culture. But then that's an international sickness. Fortunately, I've never caught the virus. But I came from 47 million people who were catching hell. And to just have a personal success and not mention that would have been, that's not how I was raised. It would have been very crude and awkward. And you know, I came from a family of community workers also. But I grew up in a struggle where the whole oppressed community was pulling together. Of course, we had collaborators, but that's human nature. But I don't think anybody, I mean, people sometimes tend to like individualize people's struggle. The people who really struggled, who really freed us, are those people who are still struggling, from the poor, from the underclass of South Africa. They're the ones who got shot at, who got like whipped, who got killed, who faced guns with stones, you know, and they are never mentioned, you know. Instead, we try to make heroes out of, I mean, I think that, for instance, Mandela was, his name was almost abused, and too much pressure was put on him. It was almost as if he achieved the South African struggle alone, but it's a 400-year struggle that he came at the end of, and he was chosen as a symbol by his organization, you know, because of the circumstances, because of his eloquence. But he couldn't have made it without the people of South Africa. I mean, South Africa were free, but like half the population is poor, dead poor. You know what I mean? They're free from oppression, but being free from oppression, my friend, is not freedom. Freedom is being able to enjoy life. And to enjoy life, you need money, peace, security, recreation, entertainment, education, and comfort. You know? And until African leaders can get into that kind of thought, we'll always be in the miserable condition we are in. And most of our leaders will always be for sale. But it's usually a great deal of the population within the elite, you know, who they get corrupted, you know, and they get consumed by overseas partners, and they think going to London or Paris or Brussels, you know, New York is a big thing. You know what I mean? And that always has concerned me. Even now, after freedom, it concerns me more, you know, because when I look at, but one of the problems is that it's difficult to be jealous of your freedom if you've forgotten your culture. That's why Africans are exploitable by their own leaderships. Not that other peoples in other countries don't suffer the same thing. But the thing is that if you're not jealous about your liberation, if you're not vigilant about your freedom, the people who you chose to liberate you are the ones who will take it away from you, as is evident in Africa and many other parts of the world. I mean, like, it was only like 26 years ago when Robert Mugabe was an even bigger figure than Mandela in our eyes. We idolized the man, you know. We thought he was like the most comprehensive, and the most complete African leader. Yeah. Who would have thought that he would be oppressing his own people one day? And he's not the only one. I mean, like Mamadou did, Idi Amin. I mean, it's just like, Bokassa, Haile Selassie. I mean, you know, it doesn't end. Banda. What's the matter with these guys? You know, you'll tell you that listen, you're a musician, you're a sportsman, you mustn't get into politics. That's an old political trick. Because politicians are terrified that like sports figures and entertainment figures are influential. And half the time they don't have anything to lose, so they'll say what is really the truth, you know. And it's usually elite people also will tell you that. Or like major political, political party apparatchiks who look upon sports people or who look upon athletes as people who are in frivolous occupations. But when they need the sports people, when they need the music for their campaigns, then at that time, yeah, the answer is important. But other than that, shelve them. I mean, Africa has for me, has the richest entertainment in the world, but where is it? And when you're happy about your source, about where you come from, you project it and you celebrate it. And I come from a singing people who play instruments, dance, so it's nothing. It's not unnatural. I mean, there is not in South Africa. There is nothing that. I mean, it has gotten less and less. But when I grew up, there was nothing that happened without music. There was always music, whether it's and no political rally ever happened, or a political meeting ever started without music or ended without music. Same thing with a birth and a death, funerals, weddings, and traditionally the harvest, the full moon, the circumcision, the coming back, the initiation, the seasons. There was always music for everything. And we sing songs. We sing thousands of songs that we know together. We don't know who composed them. And I think that's one of the things that really intimidated the last government, besides the fact that they had firepower. They couldn't believe the sound of the music. If you saw this movie, Amandla, where one of the white police said, we're sitting on tanks and with our machine guns, but when they came singing at us, I've never been so frightened. Yeah, because music is powerful. For South Africa, it's been a very powerful weapon. It helped to conscientize people all over the world. I think Miriam Makeba and Harry Belafonte were the first to do South African liberation and music that they won a Grammy for in 1964 already. And by 1985, 86, there was not an artist who was recording without a free South Africa or free Mandela song on their albums. So no other country has been surrounded in its liberation by as much music as South Africa has.
How do you do that?
Well, I think that we have to do it. We can't preach it to people. So you have to entertain them with it. It has to come through entertainment. It has to come through audiovisual. Just like the Indians and the Japanese and the Arabs, and we have to entertain the people, our people, and the world. The world will respect us because they'll see who we really are. But we have to entertain our people with who they are. We have the stories. We have it's more glorious than anything. I know, and there's a whole lot of resources there. But when we get a chance to make films, most of the time we make either very negative films about ourselves, or we make films that we can't understand, that only French intellectuals or English intellectuals can understand.